All right, welcome back to the show this week where we have what I'm going to call our first repeat offender. I've managed to do 172 come out this morning, and I've not really ever had anybody on twice. Rick Jones is going to be the first guy to go twice, and for multiple reasons. The first reason was it was episode 14. If you want to go back and try to listen to it, that what he was on for the first time, and it was really good. But we tried to do it in person before I had the equipment to do it in person, and it's the only one that like I really didn't feel good about. I still don't feel good about it because the volume, like my volume's good, his volume's not great, and you got to really, kind of work to listen to it. So, number one, I didn't feel great about that. So I was chomping at the bits to have him on again. Now, I did have him on 1 year ago today. We did a short Monday episode on advice for humans, just in general, and what I have come to know. Rick Jones is a good friend of mine that, I have gotten close to. He joined the Missouri staff as a special assistant to the head coach in February of 2020. He's coached college and high school ball for 40 plus years. Not going to date him right there, but that's a lot of years coaching. He was at Greenwood High School for 16 years, where I think they went 185 and 26 and won 8 state championships. Was the runner-up 3 times. That's 11 out of 16, which is phenomenal. He also coached at several different high schools in Oklahoma. He spent 3 years at Missouri State as an assistant to Jesse Branch. In his 31 seasons as a high school head football coach, he had a record of 317 and 74, which is absolutely crazy, and a winning percentage of over 81%. He was an 18-time Coach of the Year honoree, had a couple of big time honors, named the 2012 National Federation of High School National Football Coach of the Year, and in 2018, the AFCA Power of Influence National Coach of the Year. He's in the Hall of Fame for the Oklahoma High School Coaches Association, and he's also inducted into the Harding University Athletic Hall of Fame and was a walk-on linebacker at Harding. Now, one of the things we have in common is the walk-on at Harding thing. I was a walk-on at Harding, like he was a walk-on at Harding, and a fantastic human and a good friend of mine. And Rick, thank you for making the time to come back on the show today, and let's do this again, because I wasn't happy with the first one, but scratch that. Even if that's great, like you are worthy of 2, 3, 4. Like we'll just do this once a year, for as long as we can. So, I really appreciate you taking and making the time to come back on today.
You bet. Sounds good. Sounds like a good deal.
Well, it's going to be fun, and you're going to learn a lot of stuff today. Anybody that's listening is going to gather a lot of wisdom. I guess where I would like to start is this, and I just had this thought when I was, reading off all of your silly numbers that are absolutely crazy. I can't, like I wish that one day I could win 317 ball games. It's not going to happen because I'm going to freaking age out before it happens. But I have this thought of writing a book, and I have the title already set in my mind. And the title is Walk On. I believe walk-ons are different. I believe they go through different things in life. I believe they're special people for certain reasons. What I would like for you to share is your thoughts related to being a walk-on. What were some things that, what are your thoughts around the walk-on, then when you were walking on, and now, as someone that's at the University of Missouri, and we can get into. I think walk-ons are going to become a lot harder to do because of the number restriction. But if
Yep.
you were to contribute to a book, what would you say about walk-ons just in general?
Well, I honestly, it was not that big a deal back when I played at Harding because they gave 33 scholarships, all full. And so everybody else was walk on. I was among in our on our whole freshman dorm wing, there were only 5 guys on scholarship in the whole place. As far as the freshmen were concerned. It was a very rare thing. You sort of went up there, proved yourself, and that's the way it goes. So we were all walk-ons, and I think that makes it a lot easier. what I see at the University of Missouri, where you have 85 scholarships, and then you have, uh, we can have 106. This is all changing, of course.
Sure.
We could have 106, and those guys were really in a group by themselves because 85 guys were on scholarships. Obviously, some of them are on big NIL deals, and it is when you were a walk on and everybody else is a walk on, it's really easy. But what these guys go through, I have great respect for them. And we have like Cody comes in here as a walk on. He's 16 running back and ends up, making all SEC. And Cody Schrader. And so I just have great respect. And they are basically permanent they're permanent scout teamers. Uh, they go to their scout team meetings, and they are it's hard to make that jump because every time, and this is some of the thoughts you have as a walk-on, every time you get a snap in a game, you're telling the coaching staff they don't know what they're doing. Recruiting every single time. And if you grind and work and grind and work and you just stick with it, and then you get a chance to play, they're going to recruit another class that's going to go ahead of you on the depth chart immediately. It's just the way it goes. And every kid that I've coached that said, "Hey, I want to go walk on," I've always said, if if you walk on, you have to be ready for this. And I've had several. We had a kid named Lucas Miller at walked on at Arkansas, earned a scholarship, had a great career there. Grant Morgan uh, walked on at Arkansas, had a great career, made all SEC. Grant's coaching at Illinois now for Coach Bielema. And it is a it's and I told them you have to prepare yourself mentally. You are at the bottom of everything. You are last in line for every single thing you do. And if you're not all in, and I don't mean 98%, I mean if you're not all in, go somewhere you can play. Both, Lucas and Grant obviously were good players. They could have played earlier at a number of places, but they had their heart set on being an SEC player, and it worked out for them. I think, uh, ironically enough, I'm probably the only guy in America that's had connection coaching wise with two Brandon Burlsworth award winners,
Mm.
which is given to the best walk on in the country. With Cody Schrader and Grant Morgan, and it's hard. It's just hard. It's not near as hard as it was when I was in college because we were all walk-ons. But you get the mentality. You get the mentality. There's a guy on full scholarship over here, and he's cutting his weight workout short. He won't sprint through the line. He won't do all those little things. I had a guy when I was a freshman. I was backup kickoff team, and I had a guy on full scholarship ahead of me that wasn't even a starter, and he would get me to go down on kickoffs for him. And I was happy to do it. I mean, I'd do it 10 times in a row because I was just happy to get on the field. But you're like, you run the same sprints, you get up at same time in the morning, you do all the work that these guys do that are making all that money are getting a full ride. And now, of course, our kids work hard here, but there's probably those kids that the walk-ons look up at, Joe Bob and say, what the heck? Joe Bob's got an NIL deal. He's got cost of attendance. He's got a full ride. He gets, all this stuff. And he is always trying to cut corners and stuff like that. But you just have to take it out of your brain. If you want to play, you got to play. And that's the price you pay to be a walk-on. There's, one thing, John, is there's a pretty good number of fellow walk-ons, like you and me, who's been made pretty good coaches.
Yeah.
And I think it's because we just have a different perspective. And to be honest, I don't relate sometimes very well to that natural athlete, that guy that just coasts through life. because football from the day I walked on that field as a third grader has been a struggle. It has been a mighty struggle because
Mm.
with my athletic ability, there were no shortcuts. If I wanted to play, I had to be serious about it. I had to work at it. I had to not take a day off. I had to not miss a day uh, because I'm not very good. I'm not a very good athlete, but I didn't mind running into people, and I love the game. And I just think being a walk on, I got to the point where if a kid walked in, he said, "Coach, I think I want to walk on." I said, "Get out of here. You're wasting my time." When you come in here and you tell me you cannot live without it, then we're going to have a discussion, because if you think you want to walk on, you don't.
Mm.
you gotta, you gotta, you gotta want it deep down inside.
Well, and I can vouch for all of that. As a walk on, you come in low man on the totem pole. You're gonna get the last cleats. You're gonna get the last helmet. You're gonna get the last T-shirt if you get a T-shirt. And it is. I've had several on this show. I just interviewed Tyson Lee, who was a walk-on quarterback at Mississippi State, and several people that were walk-ons. But I do think that it produces a special type of person. I believe that they are more resilient. I believe they don't, quit things as easy. And, in life, it all works out in the end. I mean, I've seen a lot of big time, college football players that, do cut corners. And when they get out, like life can be a struggle for them. What you do learn as a walk on is you earn your keep every single day. Like you got to
Yeah,
show up every single day.
every
You got
day.
to do the work. There is no shortcut. There is no slacking. And what I've
No,
also found is this: if you're willing to pay the price, the majority, large majority of college coaches are going to play the best players. They're going to figure it out, and they're going to figure out how to get you on the field, and they're going to figure out how to get you some money. Like, it will a lot of times work out for you. Like you talked about Cody. I mean, I was watching him play, I think this past weekend, in a
he
ball game.
did.
You're talking
Yeah, he
about
returned kick. He returned kickoffs.
I watched it, and I think I think there's a special place in heaven, for people that do walk on. Let me ask you this: why did you, a long time ago, choose coaching as your profession?
I just didn't. I didn't ever think about doing anything else, honestly. Um, I love the sport. I and when I got and really it's sort of, you can call it providence or whatever, but my senior year, a whole bunch of us had stayed up there in Searcy for the summer so we could train, because we were going to win that AIC. We were bound and determined we were going to win the AIC, Arkansas Intercollegiate Conference. We were just, that was it. We were going to do it. And I think there were 25 or 6 of us stayed up there in the summer, stayed four to a 2-bedroom house and the whole deal, sleep on the floor, all that stuff you do. But we had made that decision that we were gonna win the conference, and I think it's just that mentality of just we're not gonna we're not gonna take no for an answer, and there's so many of us, I my friends, uh, and we were all walk-ons. I mean, we were all walk-ons, and for the most part, and that's it. Just you just set yourself to it. But I didn't really. Uh, I got hurt. I say all that to say I got hurt the second day of practice. I was coming off a shoulder operation on the left shoulder, hurt my right shoulder. Doctor said he wouldn't clear me. And so I then just, Coach Proc said, "Hey, I know you want to coach, so just go tomorrow." And so I'm still arm in a sling, and I'm out there. And he said, "Go to the offensive line." And I think about that, and I don't know that Coach Proc thought 5 minutes, 5 seconds about where to assign me, but I was a linebacker, and he said, "Go coach the offensive line." I said, "Coach, I need to coach linebacker." He said, "No, you don't."
Hmm.
He said, "You need to go coach offensive line." I said, "Okay." We didn't question Coach Brock. And so he said, "If you want to be a coach, you'll learn." And so I learned offensive line. It's the best thing ever happened. Even though I coached quarterbacks for, 31 years or so as a head coach, I understood protection and I understood, certain things that you learn as an offensive line coach that sometimes these passing gurus don't understand. But Coach Prock he did two really great things for me, and he did more than that. But I mean, those specifically just, hey, transition. And I'm so crushed. I'm disappointed. I've spent 3 years to get ready for our fourth year. We're going to win it all and the whole deal. And he get hurt the second day of practice. And then he got me right into coaching. And instead of just coaching where I'm comfortable, he makes me coach the offensive line. And that really was a great springboard to the career that we were able to have.
Okay. Two-part question. And you're not going to be able to answer the first part exactly, but I want you to try to put yourself back in that time. Let's go back. You're graduating from Harding and you're jumping off into a coaching career. You're 21, 22, 23, whatever. What was your definition of success at that time? What did you think of when you thought of success? And then let's fast forward that 40 plus years. And what is success today? Is it the same? Is it different? How's it different?
It's not a lot different, probably. I never thought about, and I mean, I never thought about uh, chasing a head coaching job or chasing a coordinator's job or chasing a college job. I wanted to be the best coach I could be. And inherent something in my brain told me that the best way to do that is to get with the best head coach I can work for. And I never, and I'm not saying this is good career advice. I was never a coordinator. I've never been a coordinator. Um, I I went to work when I started interviewing. I was going to Texas because that's where big time coaches, high school coaches coach, and I was going to go to Texas, and just things worked out to where I ended up taking a job in Oklahoma City with a guy who had been coaching in Texas. And I think that the biggest thing is that all I wanted to be was the best coach I could be. I did, and I thought the best way to do that was to work for the best coaches I could work for. So I went to work for Henry Manning at Dell City, and he was awesome. He was awesome. He was black and white. When I mean, I'm teaching history 5 hours a day, and he knocks on my door one day during the second hour, and he gives me one of these, and he ripped my tail right there in the hallway. I mean, not a lot of people. There was nobody there. The class was sort of curious as to why I'm getting yelled at, but I there was never any grade. If I crossed the line, if I made a mistake, he'd let me know. And I'm so grateful that he cared enough about me to just let me know in blunt terms, that's not the way we do it. That's not the way we're going to get it done. And I was grateful. And after about 3 years with him, he was very set in his ways. He had won a state championship his second year as a head coach, and he believed he had the blueprint for success. So we were going to keep doing the exact same thing. Practice 16 was practice 16. And I thought, I'm not learning as much as I need to learn. And in my fourth year, I started looking around and thinking, who can I go to work for that I can learn the most from? And there was a guy in Putnam City, which is across town from Dell City, named Mike Little, who was the passing guy. He was throwing the ball more than anybody in the state of Oklahoma. And I thought, that's what I need to learn. That's what I need to know. Of course, there's a lot of wishbone and stuff like that back in those days. And so I told the offensive line coach, who was a friend of mine, if there's ever anything open up, let me know. And he called me up after I'd been at Dell City 5 years, and he said, hey, I'm getting ready to take a head coaching job. Do you want this job? And I said, I sure do. He said, well, call Mike. And I called Mike, set up an interview, went over there on a Sunday after church, and we had a chat for about 2 hours. And he said, are you ready to come? I said, yes, sir. And that was that, because I wanted to work for him. And he had a very different approach than Coach Manning. And then after 2 years, he resigned, retired for the first time. I applied for the job, didn't get it. And so I took a job at Edmond, Oklahoma with the guy named John Lentz, who was probably who I probably have copied John more than anybody else in terms of the holistic approach he took to coaching. He got me into reading books uh, about leadership and about mental the mental aspect of life that just sort of opened my eyes. The 1 minute manager, he was big on that. And I mean, to this day, I still will do a 1 minute praising or a 1 minute reprimand or things that just throughout the years as a coach, I've used a lot of what John taught me there. But that's a long answer to a short question, but I never thought about money because I was single for so long anyway, it didn't matter. I never thought about, going as far as I could go. I just wanted to be the best coach I could be. I never thought about being a coordinator. And to be honest, I wanted to be a head coach, but I was not going to take a job to be a head coach just so I could go to a clinic and say I was a head coach. I wanted a good head coaching job, and God bless me. I was in the right place at the right time at the third biggest school in Oklahoma when the boss took a college job, and I got the job because I'd worked cheap. I don't care. That's fine. It worked out okay.
Well, 317 wins, if I've got that right. A lot, right? Very high winning percentage, super successful, 9 state championships overall, played for a bunch more. Success has a price. What is the price of success? What's the price that you paid to be as successful as you have been?
That the thing I think I have a hard time with the term price because that sounds like a sacrifice. And I just what did I sacrifice? You sacrifice time and energy uh, that could be put somewhere else. Uh, but it it is a complicated to answer because I think for one, you're never happy. And when I say happy, I don't mean happy. I mean satisfied, content. Uh, there's always, I mean, I got to the point, and I put this in one of my Tiger notes a couple weeks ago. I would tell myself I'm not thinking about the next game until at least I shake the hand of the opposing coach on Friday night.
Mm.
You know, so because it's just hard with my mentality. You get a good win, and some wins are better than others, but you get a good win, you shake the guy's hand, and you're trying not to think about, we got to get ready for so and so next week, and what do we got to do, and all that. And it's never been like Saturday mornings were great. I love Saturday morning, except when we got our beaten, and then. But going to work and trying to figure out how to win a game. I mean, I love doing that. I love Saturdays and Sundays. I love the challenge of trying to figure out how to win a game. And if if the price that I paid uh, was that I focused on that over what other people probably focus on, and that would include my family. That would include relationships with people outside the football world. Because for the most part, my friends and associates are connected somehow, either through coaching or through the sport itself. I mean, one of my best friends back at Greenwood is a guy who I coached his kids. And it can be, I guess you could say, it could be a somewhat lonely job because as a coach, you at least in my brain, I can't just go be buddies with all the dads because at some point in time, it's not going to go well. You have to make hard decisions. When I was a young guy in a big town, it wasn't as big a deal because I had a large number of faculty. I had a large number of coaches. We had a church that was, in a certain part of town. Uh, and I told the parents then, I said, no, you're not going to be my buddy. You're just not going to be my buddy. I'm not going to let it cloud my judgment. And I don't want to put you in that spot. And I sure don't want to put your son in that spot. I had a buddy the very first year I was a head coach, and I didn't have that rule in place at that time. I thought he was my buddy. I thought he would support me through thick and thin. And I demoted his son right before a crucial game. And he threatened to fill his jet up with jet fuel and fly from Dallas and whip my fanny. That was my buddy. And I thought of myself, whoa, I think some people can do that and be best buds, and I get that. But if you say price, one of the prices would be that I'm not. It's somewhat lonely when you're in a town and you you sort of even though you might have friends, if you're coaching their son, there's some bad stuff that can happen.
Yeah.
And we've all been through it. If you've been coaching over 10 minutes, you know what I'm talking about. But I think that's part of the price is that you sort of isolate yourself to a certain extent. I don't think, and especially if you're not coaching where you grew up, I think that honestly, your relationship opportunities are somewhat limited because you basically work all the time in a certain pool of people. And so other than church, there's not a lot of other places that you're gonna, develop those relationships. But I mean, in my friends are coaches,
Right.
or they're connected to football in some way. And I don't know that that's, if I was an accountant, if it would be the same way. But I think also it's part of my nature. I think I tend not on a bad side, in a bad way, to just sort of be a loner and isolate myself from a lot of different things. But I think that's part of the price you pay.
Well, and I'm no matter the word, price, sacrifice, whatever you stick in there, I do think success, super success, there is sacrifices to be made. And it doesn't matter to me if you are, the CEO of a bank or if you are, a head football coach that, has won over 300 games. Sacrifices have been made. Nick Saban sacrificed, a lot to have the success that he's had and his program has had. I think about it with myself. You know, early on, I wanted to be the very best football coach I could be. So I did sacrifice family time. I did sacrifice things that, I look back now and I don't know the answer to this. That's why I'm asking you. And I'd love to ask Nick Saban too, you know, because we do require more out of our family. Like my wife had to pull more probably than her fair share of the duties because I'm chasing the best coach I can be, so hindsight, wisdom, someone who's been in this a long time. And there's a young guy fixing to graduate college and he's fixing to jump into the coaching field. Is the sacrifices that you made worth it? You know, and what would you change, if anything, looking back? That's hypothetical. I know that, but I'm
Yep.
just curious, advice to a young man that's fixing to graduate college and I want to be the very best coach I can be. And I want to go just like a young Rick Jones did, like what advice would you give him, and yourself, your 21-year-old self looking back?
I think the biggest thing is I mean, this is digging deep, but I think the biggest thing is to don't isolate yourself. Be more social. Uh, have a wider group of friends. Uh, I think that's a big part of it. I see. I think I look at where I'm at this point in my life, and it's because of those choices that you make all the way through. I mean, it's not, uh, you know, what what makes you happy. I mean, truly happy. That sense of satisfaction and enjoyment. Uh, and to be honest, I would guess that that feeling of walking off the field is a better thrill for me than what it might be to go
Yeah.
fishing with my buddies. And I mean, that's an ugly thing to say about myself, but I think that might be part of it. Is that and yes, other side of it is I love football so much, and I think it's so important. I just never wanted to cheat kids by giving less than my best. But the fact that I sort of pull the covers over my head and sort of do things in an isolationist mentality, I think that would be a problem. I think at college I should have met more people at college. I mean, I love my brothers, my football player brothers, and that group of, there's sort of a family. There's group girls and guys that we just hung around, all the time. I would have expanded my
Mm,
if I had to do it again, I would be more social. I would care more about it. But to be honest, John, I didn't.
right. No, no.
when I got when I got hurt, instead of going out running around, you know, messing around at the student center, I'm down at the office watching film with Coach Prock. And it's not that I was so dedicated, it's just in my brain, I'd rather do that. And I think that's probably the the truth is that I liked sitting there with that old 16 millimeter projector more than I did, you know, doing some of the crazy stuff you do. I mean, we had a great dorm. I'm sure you did too, but those guys are my brothers to this day. I
yeah.
mean, you can call those guys up. I mean, we see each other after 5 years and it's like it's been 5 minutes. It's just, I wouldn't trade that for anything. But like you asked the question, what would I do differently knowing what I know now? I would be a lot, I would not a lot, but I would be more social. I would not isolate myself quite so much. We did spring sing, and that was a fun thing for you and I went to school. We got to sing and dance. What we did, singing choreography. Obviously, we weren't dancing.
Anybody that's ever grown up in the
No,
Church
no,
of
no. It
Christ
was
understands.
choreography. No, no, no. It's choreography.
It's not
That's
dancing.
sort of an
That's for
inside
sure.
joke between us.
Yeah, that's an inside joke for anybody that's been to Harding before in the history of the world. Well, I've actually said that about you, and some other people that I know that, can throw out a similar success rate as you've thrown out. What separates, you from, and I'll just like from me is I do think that that feeling after a ball game, not that it doesn't mean a lot to me. I think it means more to you. I think every day, Nick Saban's book, Fourth and One, Fourth and Goal, I think sums up the difference between Nick Saban and a lot of other people. Every day that man wakes up, and I'm going to throw you in that category because, at a high school level, you have won like he won on a college level. Every single day that human wakes up, it's fourth and goal. Every day, every second, every interaction, every practice, every drill, it is fourth and goal. And I can honestly say that's not the way my life has been run. Like it's really not. Now, I mean, that's I can hit on you or you can hit on me. Like I don't care where that falls, but I do think that there is a difference. I think that is, and I do think I call that a price that we all pay, and we do make sacrifices, but it is what drives you as well, like that is, it is a driver in our performance. A couple thoughts, one of the one of the conversations you and I had that left me with more thoughts and questions. And I've thought about it probably more than anything we've talked about. And you probably know where I'm going because it kind of revolves around this, you know, possibly being more social, you know, putting yourself out there a little more. Was your return trip for your high school reunion, you know, like your thoughts up, you know, about going back to your reunion and kind of some of the thoughts that you left there with can be categorized in this, you know, and if you could just for a second, you know, just in general, some of the thoughts that you left with, because it is similar to, you know, I would have interacted and intentionally, you know, had some more relationships that I didn't have. You know, like I've thought about that 1,000 times because we don't get redos, but what we do get
No,
are thoughts now as far as influencing people as they move
yeah.
forward, which is, you know, what we do it
You
for.
know, there's a book called The Top 10 Regrets of the Dying. And and to be honest, that one haunts me some. But I think that the moving back or the going to the 50-year reunion was a little bit different because I just got there when I was a sophomore. And my sense was that everybody's already paired up, everybody's got friends. I'm an outsider. And to be honest, I walked across the stage 3 years later and still felt like an outsider. Now, that's not their problem. That was my problem. You know,
Right.
that was all me. But I think that when I walked into that, I was not close to a whole lot of those people. Now I had a football team that we were buddies, and I had I had the girlfriend or two, or that we were, had dated and stuff like that. There were people that I really wanted to see because I went 9 hours away to college and really didn't come back. I mean, I'd been gone uh, literally 50 years, and there were just people I wanted to see. There was old girlfriends and old buddies that I wanted to see. And I walked into the facility on Friday night, it was a 2 night deal. I walked in the facility behind where the check-in desk was a big red board. And in that board, on that board were pictures of 58 of my classmates that are gone.
Mm.
That I knew one. I knew one of them. I don't mean I knew, I probably knew fairly well, probably 20 of them. Uh, and I would say 12, 10 to 12, I came back to see them, you know, and I just didn't know. I didn't know. And I looked at it, it was just like, I guess it hit me as much as anything has hit me in the fact that the clock just doesn't go back.
Mm.
I did not connect. I didn't stay connected. I went to college 9 hours. In the last 2 years, we stayed up there, didn't even come back. And when I did come back, I was working all the time. But a lot of it was my mentality in that. And this is something I spoke at a clinic a couple months ago. Is that uh, I think the biggest thing was my attitude. I was judgmental. Uh, Coach Barry Henson said, and I put this in Tiger Note the other day. He said, I only know two things. There's a God, I'm not him. And then I just thought that was so important that I did not, resented my teammates because they didn't give a flip about football, at least compared to me. They didn't care. We could get beat 50 and walk off the field, and it's like, where's the party afterward? And that just drove me crazy. And I was embarrassed. We were 3-7 my senior year. I mean, it was embarrassing. We were bad, and we didn't care. And I resented them. I judged them, and as a result, I if there's any regret, the regret is there were people on that board that I could have known better. I didn't know very well. And there were some people that I knew really well on the board that I didn't know were on the board.
Mm.
You want to see your old girlfriend, you sort of hope she's like you, bald and fat. And I looked at my girlfriend, and I was just like, and she had passed 15 years earlier. I had no, I just hadn't stayed in contact. But it is I told a coaching buddy of mine the other day, and I said it I've already said it today on the podcast, is that clock does not go backward. It does not go backward. And I accept that and understand it. And the only thing that I can do is, at this point in my life, especially, we have 28 brand new players here at Mizzou. I gave them a little 10-minute do-right talk this morning, and just try to connect and help these kids, help these young coaches that are, struggling, trying to find that full-time job. And it's not full-time, full pay job. And that's sort of the I think it's called purpose. That's sort of the purpose, because I don't really have a desire to go back and be a high school head coach. I want to try to help coaches.
Well, I think that's a great answer. And, what left me from that discussion we had about your reunion was, in 2025, it's really not hard to stay connected, with
No,
technology like it is, man. And
no,
I have thought about, because we procrastinate as humans, and I've thought about a bunch of times, like you need to pick up the phone call, you need to call that guy, like you need to have that conversation. You need to, because, like what I don't want is for things like, have those thoughts when you can prevent it. And how easy is it? I mean, I
that's
called a
easy.
guy that I had coached with in Pearl, a couple weeks ago that I had not talked to in a while. And we had a 42-minute conversation. It didn't have to be 42 minutes, but it was fantastic. Like
Yeah.
it's so easy to do. We went to uh Biloxi, Mississippi last week, and there were a couple of people that lived down there that had been in my life, and we intentionally went out of our way to go spend an hour with them just because we're there, we're right. Why would we not? Like that's and a lot of that come out of that conversation because it's easy to get caught up in what am I going to do next, what I got this, I got this, I'll see them next. No, you may not see
Yeah.
them next time. So that conversation did mean a lot. Two things I have written down on my notepad that I think is worth discussing. The Tiger Notes that you put out is fantastic. So anybody that would be the Tiger Notes are, a lot of times it is sport related. I mean, he's a football coach, so a lot of times it is that, but there is a ton of wisdom in there. So my guess is if you would like to receive the Tiger Notes, he would probably send it to you, and I will put his email in the show notes. You shoot him an email and you'll go on the list. Do you want to talk about the Tiger Notes for a second?
Oh, I tell people that I write it to an audience of one. I write it to myself. I'm trying to remind myself. I don't know if preachers do that, when they write their sermons, but I write Tiger Notes to myself. I think about what I need help in, what I might be struggling with, some information that I ran across that I want to share. But I'm happy to do it. Rick.jones@missouri.edu. I'll be happy to get you on the list. And we have a permanent list, and then I have a list that I send out, uh, all the way around. I know this week is going to be about, we hear kids all the time opt out of bowl games because they're preparing for the NFL. And it just, and I understand the business side. I don't fault them at all. But my question is, what the heck have you been doing your whole life? And the truth is, they've been preparing. Now, they might have been preparing poorly. You're preparing for the NFL when you went to bed last night. What time did you go to bed? What did you eat yesterday? What are you going to eat today? How are you going to train today? Are you going to do your best? You can try to get by the point is that, oh, now I'm going to get ready. No, if you want to play that next level, if you're in junior high and you want to be a high school player, if you're in high school and you want to be a college player, if you're a college player, you want to be an NFL player, you're preparing right now. And I think there has to be a certain amount of urgency to it. And it sometimes I just sort of chuckle when I see these kids, and I don't even know them. I don't even know them, but I'm going to opt out of the bowl game to prepare for the NFL draft. And I just been thinking, boys, I hope you've been preparing a lot longer than the next 6 weeks of your life, because that's not long enough for a
Amen.
lot of you.
Amen. Well, the Tiger Notes are fantastic. I love them. I love, there's a lot of good stuff in there. And you know what Rick and I have come to know is this, the 10-80-10 principle is in effect. There'll be a couple thousand people that'll listen to this episode, and there'll be a small fraction of them that will actually email you, and they will actually go on the list, and they might open it and they might read it, right? But how many of them is going to hit reply and say, Rick, man, that was a really good one. Like that was a good
Yeah.
one. Like most people aren't going to sign up, and most people aren't going to reply.
You just don't know. It is every once in a while I'll put one out there, and I'll say, man, that was a great Tiger Note, and it'll be crickets. And then you're like, how did I miss the mark? And then, people like yourself and others, Sherry Cole's always telling me this, because her uh, her weekly notes are fantastic. And
Yes.
she said, "Oh, there's more paying attention than you think." And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, okay." But I love
No,
it
there
when
he is.
I love it when people just hit me back, say, "Man, that was awesome," or "What did you mean by in the, and that's really it." Because I love connecting with coaches and people that are interested in being great at what they do. I like talking to people about that.
All right. The next thing I have circled on my paper, and I do not want you to go down this rabbit hole. Okay. So don't chase this rabbit. But I
Okay.
do want you, the word I have underlined and circled is parents. And I would like, because I attended a clinic that you put on for Southwest
Yeah.
Missouri, which was fantastic, of course. But your first slide, when talking about parents, what's your first slide say? What's your
Two
rules?
rules. Two rules dealing with parents. Rule number one, all parents are crazy. Rule number two, never forget rule one. And if there's a to be, it's that if they say it's not about playing time, it's about playing time.
Yeah.
It always goes back to that. That's 95%. And 95% of the parent issues are not going to be resolved. Um, Even when I go through the process of meeting with a parent, when they walk out, my goal is to make it as short as possible. And I might not say two words, because every time I talk is an opportunity for them to respond. And I don't want them to respond. I want the meeting over, because ultimately, if they think that I am not a smart enough coach to decide who our best 11 are, I'm not going to convince them in a meeting. If they believe that I'm handing the ball in front of 10,000 people to a fullback because his mother's pretty or his dad's my banker on 4th and 1, I'm not going to convince them. I'm just not. So I want it, but I do think that parents at certain times, they just want to blow. They want to say what's on their mind. And I'm happy to let them do that. But for the most part, the goal of a parent meeting is to get it over with as soon as possible
I'm gonna tell you
and
this
try not
story.
to have injuries
I don't think I've
inflicted.
I don't think I've shared this story on here, but then I'm gonna share it because I think it kind of fits. We had a parent moment, and I claim to be one of those parents that don't do that. I'm a football coach, and I understand with my kids, if they're not good enough, they're not good enough. You're not gonna hear me say a word ever. Well, our son, is in theater, and he has the luxury of trying out, and where we come from, he'd get the lead in all of them. He was the man. So he comes up here, and he's maybe a ninth or 10th grader, and he tries out for the lead, and he don't get it. Okay. And my wife automatically is like, he's the best one. Like, what was the teacher thinking? Like, what is going on? Like, do we need to set up a meeting? Do we need to? Well, he got the backup, which means that, like if they put on 5 performances, he gets to
Yeah,
do it once, within, and he's,
yeah,
if the guy gets sick or whatever, I don't know what you call that. But anyway, so we have the luxury of going to watch our son play the role and then to watch the other kid play the role. We see both of
yeah.
them. So my wife's worked up and she's convinced that, Jay got cheated. He's a new kid in town. He's not from around
Oh
here.
yeah, oh
Blah, blah,
yeah.
blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm saying nothing. Like I just take it in and we go watch. And we watch Jay, and Jay's fantastic. And he knocks it out of the park. Really good, right? So then we go back the next day and we watch the other guy, fantastic. Knocks it out of the park. My wife looks at me and says, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I think the teacher got it right. Like, I think we got to give her enough credit that she knows what she's doing. And although Jay was great, that other dude was great too. So, like, who are we to say,
Yeah,
but it was a real parent moment where, you cannot possibly see your kid without bias. Like, it is not
yeah,
possible. And, I get that.
yeah,
And but I'll never forget that first slide you put up because it really tickled me. Now we have great parents here. Yeah,
yeah,
great. When I tell you that we have great parents, when I got here, the 5 years previous to me, they were 27 and 29. I just know that because I went to a clinic, put that up there. It means nothing to me. But what it means is, like they weren't super successful. And the first thing I hear about the parents is, man, your parents are fantastic. They'll never be an issue. They'll never complain. All they're going to do is help out and don't care what turns out of the ball game. Man, when
right,
I tell you they told the truth, it was the truth. Like,
yeah.
our parents are unbelievable. Now, I will argue that in the 5 years I've been here, we're now 51 and 10. The expectations have changed, and I will
Yeah,
promise you the parents are going to change a little bit.
yeah,
It just happens. You know what I'm saying?
yeah. I bet my successor at Greenwood has dealt with that because I mean, they're spoiled. They're spoiled. And that's part of my job is to spoil them. It's
Sure.
part of your job is to spoil the parents of Nixon.
No doubt.
But but you know, and I wrote a note about this the other day, but it's communication. You do the best you can communicating so that there's no misunderstanding. And then there's going to be conflict because their opinion of their child's ability is not going to be the same as yours.
Right.
And that's just part of it. I'm a parent, you're a parent. We understand that. And it is but it's not much fun dealing with parents, but just because it takes your energy. And that's why I tried to handle it the way I did, because once they get to the meeting, in most cases, and there's been 5% of the time where I say, you know what? I understand. I understand exactly what you're saying, and I'm going to fix it. The
Yep.
other 95%, get it over with ASAP,
Amen.
and let them spill their guts. In most cases, they'll at least feel better. You might not, but they'll feel better when they walk out the door.
For sure. Well, last topic because we're approaching an hour and it's went really fast. So, I'll be looking forward to when we do this again because I always enjoy it. This is my last thought is, you transition in 2020, from high school ball to, University of Missouri is as the, like assistant to the head coach in that role, whatever that is. Um, and then you do that for a couple of years. And then, the last 18 months or so, you kind of remotely took a little different type of job with Mizzou and kind of did it remotely. And then now you've went back full time. So the question
Yeah.
is, why did you get out of high school and get into that world? And then B, what did you learn about yourself in the 18 months that you were not there that, made you decide that, man, I got to go back, like tell me about that.
That, that's really that's really I'm going to go deep dive on you, and I'm just going to tell you the truth. Uh, I found out, for one, I never thought I'd leave Greenwood, Arkansas, because that's the best high school football job in America. It's the best ever. It's the best. They are so awesome, and we had good teams, and we had a chance to win every year. And I never even thought. I figured I would coach there until I got hit by a bus. And when Coach Drinkwitz called me, he said, "Would you be interested in off the field position here at Mizzou?" I said, "Yes," just like that. And it as I look back at it, I think I was ready.
Right.
I think I was ready. I've done it for 31 years as a head coach. I think 7 or 8 as an assistant in high school. And I thought, I'm ready. And I I didn't know what I'd get paid. I didn't know what my title would be. I didn't know what my role would be. But I trust Coach Drinkwitz, and he said, "Well, let me finish recruiting. I'll get back with you." And then 2 weeks later, he called me up and he said, "You ready?" I said, "Yeah, let's go. When do you want me?" And I I would I think I was ready, and I've not had one day of regret when the alarm goes off that I'm not back in Greenwood, Arkansas, or that I'm not back as a high school head coach. I think I've done it. I think I feel like I've that part of that phase is done. Now my goal is to help coaches as much as I can, whether that's here at Mizzou or whether in the state of Missouri or our footprint area or wherever we send those Tiger notes or have coaches come in and visit and stuff like that. And I've enjoyed that transition. And I thought I wanted to do less and I wanted some freedom time wise because we don't have a whole lot of free time. I wanted to go to my 50-year reunion. I wanted to caddy for my son at the professional or the world championship of disc golf. I wanted to do some traveling to see some buddies and friends of mine. And I did that. I probably should have done more, but there was like 5 months without football that I, I'm undisciplined. I'm not as disciplined as I need to be. I wanted to write a book and I wasn't disciplined enough to sit down and just do it. Just write those first three sentences and I wasn't disciplined enough to do it. And I guess the the bad thing about my personality is that I need that alarm. I don't need the alarm to get me up in the morning if I have somewhere to go. I mean, I've come back full time, you know, this week essentially, and the alarm hadn't beaten me yet. I get up 5:15 and I'm ready to roll. And I guess it's a weakness in my own mentality that I enjoy. I enjoy being around football players. I enjoy being around coaches. I enjoy being around a competitive environment. And I that's about as honest an evaluation. I wish I were more uh, I wish I were more disciplined and that I could do some of those things without having that schedule or that regimen, but I'm not. And I'm going to miss. Uh, I eat lunch every Wednesday with a really good friend of mine. I'm going to miss that very very much.
Most definitely. That is something that I missed yesterday, as a matter of fact. Well, okay. Last question. What does the next 10 years look like for Rick Jones?
I
Forecast the
really
future.
I really don't know. I don't know. I and I think I probably should have a 10-year plan, but I don't. I have a 1 day plan. Coach Drinkwitz texted me this morning, and there was some information he wanted me to get for him, and I've been getting that. I had to give a little 10-minute do right talk to some 28 new players here at Mizzou, and that was on my mind. And it's so great when you wake up in the morning and you say, "Hey, you got something you got to get done today," and like instead of saying, "What are we going to do?" And I'm not that good anymore at golf, and I this is my hobby. This is my job, and I enjoy being around a competitive environment because this is obviously it's a challenge here every day,
No
and
doubt about it.
I enjoy hopefully I can be helpful, and
For
that's
sure.
really I think that's my goal for the next 10 minutes and for the next 10 years.
Okay. Last one, I promise. You are, and one of the things that I admire, you are an extremely growth-minded human. Like you are continually trying to add resources to yourself, so you can help other people. And that's, how do you look at getting better? How do you look at, continuing to grow? Like, what are some things that have been doing for a while and you will continue to do?
Well, that I think being curious about stuff. I think AI is going to change how we coach football. I don't know how yet. I wrote that in my Tiger note last week. I don't know how it's going to change, but it's going to change it. And just like the analytics and the analytics books and all that kind of stuff, I'm curious about that. And I think part of the deal is just stay curious and look around. What's the next thing? What's the next thing coming down the pike? There was, uh, there's a time where when I was in high school, where half the teams we played, of course, we were in Oklahoma, half the teams we played ran the wishbone. So, I mean, things are constantly changing. Nobody foresaw that you would carry basically a computer in your pocket and you would be connected to the entire world 24/7. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are changing. And I think to improve, I've listed, if people have been paying attention, there's 4 or 5 things that I need to improve personally about myself. And I am on a mission to do better. And I think that's part of it. I think when you reach, uh, I'm so I'm so thankful to the good Lord that at this point in time I'm healthy. I feel great. Uh, I have energy. I get up and do my hour-long walk every morning. I just have to get up earlier to get it done, and I feel very, very lucky to have the opportunity. And honestly, Coach Drinkwitz has been so great to me. I can't say enough about how much I appreciate him letting me keep my foot in the door and then opening the door when it was time.
He's a good dude, man. I have become fond of him, through the being in Missouri thing, and really good dude, and has done an outstanding job, with the football program, at Missouri, winning 10 games. Not no easy feat, that's for darn sure. So,
Nope.
Rick, man, I appreciate you taking the
You're
time,
welcome,
making the
John.
time today. I appreciate, our friendship, and I'm super thankful for all you do for others, and myself. The influence you've had on me, as well as, a lot of other humans, has been tremendous.
Well, I thank you. I feel the same, brother.
Appreciate it. And then look, all of you listening, I'll put his contact in the show notes. If you want to sign up for the Tiger Notes, do so. Share this episode with somebody, especially if you know a young
Yeah.
coach getting out into the profession, man. I appreciate all of you that listen. And
Let me give my cell number, John.
yeah,
Four
please,
seven nine 479-650-9950. 479-650-9950. Anytime. I'm
man, that's
here. I'm here
awesome.
to help. That's Coach Drinkwitz wants to me to help high school coaches when I can. And that's part of the reason that he has me here. So don't feel like you're putting me out. It's what I enjoy doing, but it's also part of my job.
So now you have his cell phone number and his email. Get after it. Until next
There
time,
you go.
adios, amigos.